to Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host, Anthony Gamer, and in today's episode, we're going to discuss all the Mario games for the NES. Ever since he made his first appearance in 1981's Donkey Kong, well, back then he was called Jumpman, Mario has been a staple and the official mascot of Nintendo. His games continue to come out today, and he has been on a wide variety of platforms. But today we're going to talk about the games that he was in for the NES. So without further ado, let's get into the games. Of course, we have to start off with Mario's first appearance, and that is Donkey Kong. Now, this was initially released for the Famicom in 1984, I believe. 83, excuse me, and was released for the NES in 1986. Any eagle-eyed player will recognize the fact that the pie level is missing. That's what it's called. I'm not really sure if those are pies. They say they're concrete and tins, but they look like pies. Now, you would think to be interesting that Nintendo would do almost a direct port of their own game. Well, according to rumors that I've heard, the reason they left the pie level out is because at that time, the game was still making money in the arcade, and they didn't want people to stop playing it in the arcade and get the full benefit of the game. So that is the reason that I've heard that the pie level is missing. To be honest, the pie level is missing for most ports of Donkey Kong, except for some of the computer ports. And of course, they had to follow it up with Donkey Kong Jr. This was also released for the Famicom in 1983 and for the NES in 1986. In this game, you take on the role of Donkey Kong Jr., who is trying to rescue his papa from Mario. Incidentally, this would be the only Mario game in which Mario is the antagonist. And in 1988, they released Donkey Kong Classics. This was the first multi-cart that they released for the NES, with the exception of Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. And in this one, you got both Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. And next we would have Mario's solo game, that being Mario Brothers, that was released for the Famicom in 1983 and in 1986 by the NES. In this game, you take on the role of Mario, and unfortunately, New York sewer systems have been infected with some bad creatures, so you have to go around and knock them out and collect the coins and look out for the fireballs and for some of those fast-moving creatures. Really a fun game, honestly. One that I got into immediately. My first introduction to this was in the arcade, and I also really enjoyed the Atari 2600 version. Next up, we have Pinball. This was released in 1984. Now, you're probably thinking, what's Mario got to do with pinball? Well, not only is he on the cover, because after all he was Nintendo's mascot, but he and Pauline make cameo appearances in this game. Even though it's technically not a Mario game, I included it because Mario is in the game and on the box, but still he's in the game, so. Golf, also known as Nintendo Golf, and this one was released in 1984 for the Famicom, in 1985 for the NES. Now, everybody knows that that's Mario. He's wearing different clothes and shaped maybe a little differently, but we all know that's Mario. In later golf games, it would be much more obvious that you're playing with Mario. Next up, we have Wrecking Crew from 1985. Now, this one kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people, myself included. I didn't even know about its existence until later on. This comes from a Nintendo fandom. The game revolves around Mario's job as a demolition worker. The object of the game is to destroy various objects in the level. Level design is key, as it is designed to have things destroyed in certain levels. Destructibles include ladders, columns, bombs, and blocks. To make things more complicated, various enemies will trouble Mario as he progresses, including fireballs, wrenches, the Eggplant Man, and a foreman named Spike. Okay, now Luigi appeared as the second player, dressed oddly in purple. Okay, now this actually is a port of an arcade release called Wrecking Crew Versus, which was keeping in the series of Nintendo Versus games that were in the arcade. So, pretty cool game, kind of a lost classic, but I really enjoyed it. And here we finally have it, Super Mario Bros., the launch title, the pack-in title, the game that many of us first played on the Nintendo Entertainment System. What more can I say about it? It's a classic. It's the original Super Mario Bros. That's about it. Love the game. I just played this game obsessively until I beat it, and I've beat it multiple times since. It's just one of those games you just keep coming back to. Never gets old. Now we come to Super Mario Bros. 2, and let's talk about the story behind this game. When it was released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System, it was a big hit. Unfortunately, the people in Nintendo of America played it and they said, it is too hard. And yes, it is. Wow, so they said, well, we'd like to have a Super Mario Bros. 2 game, but this one is just too hard. American fans aren't going to like it. Now, later on, it would be released as part of that compilation for the Super Nintendo, and it would be called Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. Okay, so what was Nintendo to do? They had American fans who wanted a Super Mario Bros. 2, but the one they made was too hard. So let's take another game called Yome Kojo Doki Doki Panic, and maybe we can make that into the Super Mario Bros. 2. And that's how we got Super Mario Bros. In the United States. Now, all they had to do was do a couple character swaps, change a few sprites, change the music a little bit, add in the ability to run, and you have Super Mario Bros. 2. Also, this game was featured on the cover of the very first edition of Nintendo Power Magazine. And when they released a special multi-cart for the Super Famicom, this game was listed as Super Mario Bros. 2 US version. And it was so nice they did it 3 times, and this is Super Mario Bros. 3, arguably one of the greatest games for the NES. In this game, you once again take on the roles of Mario and Luigi, and you are trying to defeat King Koopa or Bowser and his really bad children. And the game is really a lot of fun and quite challenging, especially when you get to the last world. Mario and Luigi have some really cool new power-ups, like the Hammer Brothers suit, where you can throw hammers, the raccoon, where you can actually fly for a short time, the hammers, I mean, all kinds of cool stuff. There's puzzle elements to the game, and yeah, it really does stand the test of time, and is, in this YouTuber's humble opinion, definitely one of the greatest video games of all time, period. In the late 80s, and early 90s, Tetris was a very, very popular game, still is to this day. And so Nintendo decided to release Dr. Mario in 1990 as the cure for Tetris. I don't know how that is, but anyway, in this game, you are trying to match colors with these various germs. 3 of the same color eliminates the germs. So the game gets pretty intense pretty quickly, but it does not take away from the fun factor. So very smart job of marketing with the commercials for this game, and it was just a whole lot of fun and still holds up to this day, much like Tetris does. In 1991, they released NES Open Tournament Golf, or as it's known in some parts of the world, Mario Open Golf. So this is kind of like, I guess, a spiritual sequel to the original golf game. On the start screen, you see both Mario and Luigi, plus Princess Peach and Princess Daisy, as they are in the game to kind of cheer you on a little bit. Really a cool game. I mean, like the original golf, but this one has some other places you can go, I believe, and it's a really cool game, actually. I really enjoyed playing it. I have to admit, I'm a kind of a sucker for just about any golf game, though. In 1991, Nintendo released Yoshi. This puzzle game was the first appearance of Mario's dinosaur friend, who has been a part of the Mario franchise ever since. In this game, you are Mario and you have items dropping down, and you have to try to get two on the same plate to move up to the next level. There's an A and B mode just like there is in Tetris, and you can set the speed. Surprisingly, it's a very addictive game. I was just surprised how I kept going when I was trying to record footage for this episode, and I just kept playing because it was just a whole lot of fun. I didn't play it back in the day. I didn't even really know about it. It kind of is another one that kind of slid in under the radar, but it's a game that I'm really glad I did discover. The very next year, we got Yoshi's Cookie. Now, this is another puzzle game, and it's just as addictive, if not more, than Yoshi. In this one, you take on the role of Mario again, and you have cookies coming in, and you have to complete a row of cookies, either up, down, side to side. You get the point. And when you clear a row, you try to fill up the meter on the side of those particular type of cookies. Not only does the game make me hungry, but it made me want to keep playing it. Again, another game that I didn't realize even existed until recently. But because at that point, a lot of us were getting into the Super Nintendo, so late release NES games kind of flew under the radar for a lot of us, and that's why some of them are quite valuable. Next up, I'd like to talk about some of the Mario games that were released for the Famicom Disk System. Now, a lot of the games that were released for the FDS were also released in America. However, there were a couple games that stayed in Japan, and those are the ones we're going to talk about right now. Next up, we have I Am a Teacher, Super Mario Sweater. Now, this one isn't actually a game. It's more of a program that allows people to design their own sweaters with Mario-related characters. Now, we're going to have an episode, actually our next one is going to be about the FDS itself. And you could write to some of the discs, and then you would bring it in, I think, to a specific store, and you could get your sweater made. Of course, this program would allow you to design it to have the sweater fit to your body size. So it was kind of a neat concept. Unfortunately, it never left Japan. So even if you have this program, you're not going to be able to make your own Mario sweater. Sorry. Next up, we have All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. From 1986. Now, this is interesting because this is Nintendo hacking their own game. Yep. Making a few cosmetic changes to the game, changing a few levels around, and making characters that look like the stars of an all-night radio show from Japan. Of course, for obvious reasons, American fans wouldn't quite get it, so it's probably one of the reasons it wasn't released over here. Still, it's kind of neat to see some of the changes that they made to this already iconic game. Next up, we have Golf, Japan Course. Now, this game was released in 1987. And in this game, it's kind of similar to the Open Golf, except the graphics are a little different, and the game is a lot more difficult. In this one, you are once again Mario, and you are going to play golf at a golf club in Japan. Really kind of a fun game, but boy, the challenge is pretty high on this. Also, you have to select your own clubs. I kind of figured that out the hard way. But yeah, it's a pretty cool game, but for those that have mastered Open Golf, this is one you have got to try. Next up, we have Golf US Course. Now, it may look like Mario Open Golf, but trust me, it's not. It's quite difficult. Yeah, it looks like it may be the same. I mean, when you first see Mario, like, oh yeah, it's the same game. No, it's not. It's, oh wow, these courses have water hazards, bunkers all over the place. This is definitely the next step after you've probably mastered, if you have, the golf game in Japan. So I encourage people to try this because it's a lot of fun, but be ready for quite the challenge. And our final game for today is Kayeta Kita Mario Brothers, or The Return of Mario Brothers. In this game, you have the Super Mario Brothers again, or the Mario Brothers again, fighting against the bad guys in the sewers, and you have a lot of product placement. Oh yeah, I was surprised at how different times when I started the game up, I would get different product placement commercials, and there are ones spread out throughout the game too. Some of the other changes, well, Mario can switch directions in midair. The graphics seem to be smoother, and the gameplay is smoother, and Luigi looks a lot like Luigi. So again, a shame that it wasn't released here in the States, but I don't think we would have cared much for the product placement, especially if they were products we couldn't get here in the US. In our next episode, we're going to discuss the ill-fated Famicom Disk System. Well, that brings this episode of Classic Gamer 74 to a close. I really hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed presenting it to you. If you did enjoy it, let me know by giving me a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload any new videos. Connect with me on all my social media platforms and check out my Patreon page, where you can find some videos and behind-the-scenes stuff that you can't find anywhere else. So please be generous and help me out there. Well, until next time, this has been Anthony Gamer, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. See you soon. Bye for now.